Hello and welcome. I'm Amritan Shirai and you're watching Law of the Land on Sabha TV. Today we bring to you the Supreme Court judgment on interlinking of rivers. The apex court has directed setting up a super committee to implement the plan to network rivers. To discuss the issue, I have with me Professor A.K. Gosai, Head of Department of Civil Engineering, and Dr. Bharat Jhunjhunwala, former Professor, IIM Bangalore. Now for the headlines. The Supreme Court directs the government to implement interlinking of rivers. The project to link rivers is likely to cost over 5.60 lakh crore rupees as per the estimates prepared in 2002. And feasibility report of links of Mahanadi, Godavari, Krishna and Kaveri have been completed. The Supreme Court has directed the setting up of a super committee for implementing interlinking of rivers. The court has directed that the committee should take precedence over any other agency and will report to the cabinet. The court commissioner in this matter will have the liberty to file contempt petition against anyone for non-compliance of the Supreme Court's order.
The Bhakra Dam is often quoted as an example of the benefits of the river water management. It has enabled the states of Punjab and Haryana to register faster growth as compared to the rest of the country. This project provided an additional irrigated area to the extent of 6.8 million hectares over 35 years. Increased irrigation intensity led to the increased usage of high-yielding variety seeds, which at present constitute more than 90% of the area under wheat and 80% of area under paddy cultivation. According to the National Council of Applied Economic Research (NCAER) report, the poverty ratio has seen a slide ever since the Bhakra Dam project materialized. The poverty percentage decreased from over 28% in 1973 to 1974 to about 6% in the year 2000. Haryana also registered the same story. The poverty percentage decreased from over 35% in 1973 to 1974 to nearly 9% in the year 2000.
The kind of tapping that we are going to do is going to be when the water resources are going to be in ample supply. That's going to be done in the flood season. And then also the water that is going to be stored in this reservoir will be released over a period of year back into the system, and that system will again convey it by way of drainage into the sea.
Let's look at the judgment by the three judge bench of the Supreme Court, including Chief Justice S.S. Kapadia, Justice Swatantra Kumar and Justice A.K. Patnaik. The apex court has directed the government to constitute a special committee for interlinking of rivers. The committee will be headed by Minister of Water Resources and will have Water Resource Secretary, Chairman, Central Water Commission, CWC, National Water Development Authority, NWDA, 4 experts from different fields, Minister of Water in state governments, Chief Secretaries, Court Commissioner Ranjit Kumar and 2 social activists as its members. The committee has been directed to meet once in 2 months. Non-presence of any member or the head will not affect the proceedings. The committee is empowered to set up other committees to achieve its objective, which is implementing the interlinking of rivers. It will report to the cabinet, and the cabinet is advised by the court to take the decision preferably within 30 days after the matter is placed before it by the committee. The apex court has directed the committee to start implementing the Ken-Betwa project first. The central government and the state government have been directed to provide all possible help to implement interlinking of rivers. The amicus curiae in the matter has been empowered to file contempt petition for default and non-compliance of the directions.
What we are creating is a distribution of water through a network of canals across the country in a way that it provides the benefits where they are needed the most. So the rather than calling it interlinking of rivers, we should be calling it integrated water resources development projects, which view the country as a whole rather than viewing any small area.
The project comprises of two components, peninsular rivers and Himalayan rivers. The first involves major interlinking of river systems and the latter envisages the construction of shortage reservoirs on the principal tributaries of rivers Ganga and Brahmaputra in India, Bhutan and Nepal. The project will help transfer surplus flows of the eastern tributaries of the Ganga to the west, apart from linking the main Brahmaputra and its tributaries with the Ganga and Mahanadi rivers. One side, interlinking of projects say that it will provide water from flood-prone area to the drought-prone area. But it is always a proof theory that whenever we have played with the nature, it has always given a negative impact. With camera person Gajendra, Aruna Thakur, Rajya Sabha TV.
Nearly 64% of the population in rural areas and 4% in urban areas depend on agriculture as their principal source of income. The analysis carried out in the state shows that the interlinking of rivers program has the potential to increase the growth rate of agriculture. So my first question to you is, first of all, you saw the entire story that we've done. Why was there a need for the Supreme Court to actually get into it and force the government to do it?
No, I cannot really talk on their behalf why they felt so. But I think the main question is that this is an intervention, intervention by the mankind, which is not a natural process. So we have to be cautious in terms of its implications. So I'm more concerned as a technologist that unless we are sure of what are the implications of such a huge intervention, and also, are we certain that this is the only resort left?
What could be the other options, sir?
You see, the basic problem is storage. I don't think the problem is interlinking, because the surplus water is available mostly in monsoons.
Right.
And that is not the time where the deficit areas need the water very much, except for temporary droughts or anything. So ultimately, the real question is that the surplus water has to be stored. And I'm aghast that instead of talking about storage of water, we are talking about interlinking of rivers. Because if you transfer monsoon water from Brahmaputra to Ganga, Ganga does not need water in the monsoon. So what is the point of interlinking? I don't understand this.
Interlinking vis-a-vis Supreme Court and its wisdom. 10 years, the court had been hearing this petition. And after 10 years, nearly a decade, it began in 2002, converted into PIL. Now this judgment was made and very specific. Did the court ever feel, or did you as a professional ever get a feeling that the government was actually not interested in implementing because of reasons that you are bringing out?
No, I think government was all along interested, as the governments kept on saying. The agenda was slightly different from one government to the other government, but I have seen that all the governments were in principle quite in favor of interlinking.
We are joined by Sunita Narayan, Director General Center for Science and Environment from CSE headquarters. Ma'am, we are discussing interlinking of rivers at the moment, and the point we are trying to make is that the Supreme Court has directed the government and has set up a super committee to implement all the interlinking projects, and there are about 30 such linking projects, one in the Himalayan and the peninsular region. Are you in favor of that implementation of interlinking or not? And the way the court has directed, do you think that's the way to go?
I'm not against interlinking per se, but I really don't believe that this is a feasible approach at this moment. And I think there is a lot more that this country can do to improve its track record in water management, which it should do today without waiting. Today it's raining, at least where I am at the CSC office, it's raining beautifully in Delhi. But how much of this rainwater do we actually harvest? How much of this rainwater do we make sure goes back into the groundwater aquifers that we are pulling out so indiscriminately across the country? There is so much more that we can do with our water. We can recycle and reuse every drop of urban sewage. I think that's where the investment needs to go, rather than wasting more time and money in chasing a dream which is really just a dream.
Ma'am, I'll bring in Dr. Bharat Jhunjhunwala. He is former professor IIM Bangalore. Sir, do you agree? As of now, do we need to manage our existing resources first or get into a dream as...
I would not go for before, after. I think both have to be done. Okay. We have to dream. There is nothing wrong in dreaming, because unless you dream, the country will not grow. But the dream has to be moderated by wisdom. And this particular judgment of the Supreme Court, personally, I think it is totally misplaced. It is totally driven by the concept that more power, more cement, more concrete, more money will solve the problems of the country. This is not going to happen.
It's time for us to head into a break. When we return, we will talk about the status of the projects to link rivers. Welcome back. The Supreme Court has been seized of the issue relating to interlinking for the last 1 decade. Due to the proactive role of the Apex Court, the government has embarked on an ambitious project of networking of rivers, which is expected to cost over 5 lakh crore rupees. The government has completed feasibility report for Mahanadi, Godavari, Krishna and Kaveri rivers.
The National Water Development Agency, the nodal body to conduct technical studies relating to water bodies, has already identified links under Himalayan component, which deals with all the rivers having its source in Himalayas, and all links under Peninsular Rivers component, which deals with all the rivers emerging in the peninsular region.
If you link Ganga system with, say, Narmada system, or say with Kaveri system, now what you are doing is you are playing with the biodiversity of the two. The fishes and the other aquatic flora and fauna that you find in the Ganga system would get intermingled with that system, and that would be disastrous for both.
Let's look at some of the important links of rivers and their status relating to interlinking. The 16 links that the government has identified under peninsular rivers includes links of Mahanadi, Godavari, Krishna, Pennar, Kaveri, for which feasibility reports FR has been conducted, and 7 other links which are in various stages of technical study. The 14 links under Himalayan rivers include links of Kosi, which lie in Nepal, Kanda, for which the survey and investigation SNI on the Indian side has been completed. Yamuna links for which feasibility reports are ready, and 9 links relating to Ganga for which the survey and investigation SNI on the Indian side has been completed.
The Ken-Betwa feasibility report was finalized in 2003 or 4, sometimes. And the data that was used in that feasibility report was 70s. See, the top decision makers do not look at the entire report. They look at only at the executive summary or a kind of technical summary. But if we look at the actual report and the data is so old, then how can we believe that the intentions are correct or the decisions are going to be correct?
The implementation of interlinking of rivers involves various stages like preparation of feasibility reports of links, negotiation in consensus among concerned states, agreement with neighbouring countries if link involve area lying in other countries, preparation of detailed project report. Detailed project report clearance from Ministry of Environment and Forest, clearance by Ministry of Tribal Affairs, techno-economic clearance by Technical Advisory Committee, investment clearance by Planning Commission is also required. When we interlink the rivers, the major issue which will going to be arise is of displacement, and it is the general public who will going to be suffer the most. With camera person D.K. Tiwari, Aruna Thakur, Rajya Sabha TV.
The states of Rajasthan, Gujarat, Tamil Nadu have fully supported the concept. Madhya Pradesh is in favor of the centre bearing the burden of implementing. The states of Karnataka, Bihar, Punjab and Sikkim have given qualified approvals. Now the question to you, sir, is that we've already got the states in, the centre is also ready, and you've now got a super committee set up by the Supreme Court. Do you see anything being able to stop it?
I think nothing will work. Everything will be stopped, personally. Because the states may want to do it, but they don't have the money. And the government, union government, even if it puts the money, there has to be some return. The basic flaw of this whole project is that the water that will be transferred from one place to the other. You see, if you are using water of Ganga suboptimally, you're not getting as much productivity from Ganga, and you can get much more productivity of it in the Vindhyas or somewhere else, then it does make a sense to transfer the water. But there is no viability, no study of this type, to the best of mine. I have seen a study by NCAER, but I'm not convinced that the increase in productivity because of transfer of water will be so much to justify this kind of water.
Ma'am, can you hear us? Ma'am, I just want to ask you, the NCAER has, in fact, the Supreme Court judgment leans a lot on the report of the NCAER, and also the three aspects is that the states have agreed more or less. The center is also almost aligned to the project, and largely due to the Supreme Court's strict orders directing implementation of interlinking. Do you see it happening, or do you see it not happening?
Amritanshu, I have seen the NCAR report. I have gone through it in great detail. It's a cost-benefit analysis of the project, but as the NCAR will itself tell you, it was a very rough cost-benefit analysis, taking some very macro figures, saying that if a project invests in water, you will increase productivity, and therefore it will be beneficial. But the NCR report does not take into account any of the costs of making such a mega project, which is land acquisition costs, which will be massive. We know today that land acquisition, and rightly so, has become the most important issue across the country as people are getting displaced. Narmada project to every other project has been derailed and has been delayed because of land acquisition, which is important. Environmental costs are very important. The NCR report does not get into any of that. And I think what we are missing the point is that I personally don't believe that any irrigation project is bad. There are very good irrigation projects, and all irrigation projects do link a sub-basin to another basin. So there's nothing wrong in doing so. But the scale of the project that is being conceptualized, which was done in the early 60s, I think is completely unworkable in today's India. And my only appeal to the Supreme Court is that whereas I do understand the motivation and their commitment to water management, I think that their chasing this project and forcing governments to implement it will only become a contractor's dream, because there will be huge amount of investment being made in both consultancies and doing some amount of contracting work. But I do not think it is what will add to India's water security. So this is really where it's time this country got serious about water and took some tough decisions, but interlinking is not one of them.
Professor Gosai, do you agree?
Yes, I agree with that, and I also go further to some other points which are very relevant. That now we are a democracy, and I think we have, our engineers are still not tuned to the idea of sharing whatever they want to do with the general public. Now is the time when you have to convince the public, whatever you're doing, what are the various options. We never give options. We say that this is the final option, what we are giving, and that is the end of it. That is not true. We need to understand that, yes, the amount of water which we have as a country, I have seen countries which are even having less rainfall than us. They are doing much better job. I have seen countries who are going backwards in terms of restoring the natural habitats. The wetlands are being restored. They are getting rid of their existing structures which they have made around 200 years ago. And they are trying to feel that, yes, this was a wrong thing. Why don't we learn from their mistakes and try to look at the options which are viable and feasible options without investing a lot of money, which are a win-win situation. which ultimately our goal is to really make our country self-sufficient, food-wise, water-wise, other requirements of water. And we are taking a path of overdevelopment, where we are not looking at what is the extent of development which is feasible, which is sustainable. So this is not going to bring in additional sustainability, this kind of mega projects. I think that is what I will like to really do, what I was earlier also saying, that try to look into which are the steps to be taken immediately, and then while doing that, do much more extensive studies and put these things, whatever they are saying that we have done the feasibility studies, they have not really brought to a level where they have given options to the society.
Yeah. On that note, it's time for us to head into a break. When we come back, we will show you an interview with Coordinator South Asia Network on Dams, Rivers and People, Mr. Himanshu Thakkar. Welcome back. My colleague Aruna Thakur spoke to Mr. Himanshu Thakkar, Coordinator South Asia Network on Dams, Rivers and People, and tried to get his point of view.
Recent Supreme Court judgment regarding interlinking of rivers gives clear direction for the implementation of this project in a time-bound manner. So tell us briefly about the background of this project.
In 1981-82, they set up National Water Development Agency, whose main basic task and the only task was to formulate the first pre-feasibility reports, then feasibility reports, and then further work on the river linking proposals. The proposal that now, as it stands, involves 30 river links involving 37 rivers, which will involve building of more than 200 mega dams. So these are the broad contours of the project.
The project does not have the environment clearance. So what do you want to say on this issue?
No, actually, in India's decision-making process, the stage at which environment clearance is sought comes much later. The projects have not yet reached a level where they can seek environment clearance, because if you don't have even feasibility reports, and if you don't have even detailed project reports, then you can't go for environment clearance. The only link for which they have applied for environment clearance, only the first stage, the terms of reference clearance, was the Ken-Betwa link.
There are n number of criticism regarding this interlinking of project. So what, according to you, is the main critique of the project?
Whole this scheme is dependent on surface water. But India's water lifeline today is not surface water, it's not rivers, it's not dams, it's the groundwater. Most of India's water supply, whether it's irrigation, urban, rural or industrial water supply, comes from groundwater. And if you want to sustain that groundwater lifeline, and we have no option but to sustain it, the best way is to harvest water where it falls. We are not doing it in Bihar or Assam, where there is surplus water, nor are we doing it in Maharashtra, Gujarat, Rajasthan or Karnataka, which are facing drought now. So if you don't do that, we are in big trouble in future.
The Supreme Court in its judgment observed that time is a very material factor in the effective execution of interlinking of rivers. The court, quoting the NCAER report and Standing Committee report, said the delay has adversely affected the financial benefits that could have accrued to the country. The point, all that is said and done, you were talking about the requirement aspects. Do we actually require such a huge project?
Yeah, that's one. And I'll also like to add another thing, that whatever we are thinking in terms of the interlinking is based on the history, historical situations. And with the climate change, which is on the doors, we are not sure of what will be the implication of the climate change on all this setting which we have over all the country, over the country. So if we are not certain about what is the future basically meant for India or the Indian geographical area, we are not in a position, we shouldn't be really getting into this very mammoth task when we are not certain. There is a lot of uncertainty about the future availability of rainfall, the future temperatures, what will be the demands of the cropping patterns which we are going to implement, which we are basing all our designs on. I think at this stage, we are not knowing our requirement fully, whether the surplus river system will be still remaining surplus or the deficit.
Are you suggesting a review?
A review, and we'll have to wait and watch for maybe another 5 years or 10 years when we get some better information about the future, what the future has in store for us. It is too early, and that's where again it'll come back that there are many other things to be done before we really get into this.
Dr. Jhunjhunwala, on the surplus, do we really have a surplus? And the flood and the drought ratio as it is being made out, does it really hold true?
You see, the whole concept is that the flood water is a waste. This is not correct. See, when the flood water spreads over a large area of land, it recharges the groundwater, it renourishes the land. So if you're going to remove that flood water and transfer it to a dry area, there will be a reduction of crop production in the present flood areas, and there will be some increase in the drought areas. On the balance, what will be there, we don't know. So it will be a totally useless exercise. The second part is that the flood has its own ecological function. See, there are many areas where you will find vegetation, which if they get flood water once in 5 years, once in 10 years, they will regenerate and the trees will survive. So you don't deprive these things. Then the whole concept of, we have to understand coastal erosion. See, when the river flows in the monsoon, it brings a lot of silt. And this silt renourishes our coasts. Otherwise, the sea has a natural tendency to eat away our coast. So once you remove this flood, the silt will not go to the sea, and just like the Ganga Sagar island and the coast of Andhra Pradesh are receding, we may find that the sea is going to come in. So my basic point is that one has to take a much more detailed environmental analysis. Because you see, the NCER report says very clearly the environment issues have not been dealt with. And without dealing the environment issues, they have come to a cost-benefit ratio of 1:1.3. That is, if you put 1 rupee, you will get 1 rupee 30 paisa, which is nonsense. Which is nonsense.
I'll get in. Ma'am, anything that you would wish to add?
No, I think it's all been said, but just to make the point that, this whole concept is built on the premise that there are certain parts of India which have flood and there are certain parts of India which need water. And so the simple proposition is, can we not move the flood, the areas where there is surplus water, to areas where there is deficit water? Now, so it's very simple and it seems therefore very attractive to do. But it's very important for us to understand that today there are two major issues to look at. One, that when the rivers are in flood, then transferring water from one river to another river becomes very difficult, which means that you have to make very large amount of pondage, reservoir areas where you will store the rainwater and then transfer it when the river is available for transportation. So the project becomes even more land intensive, it requires has even more environmental impact. The other point is that there is very few rivers today, in today's India, which have surplus water. The only river is Brahmaputra right now, where there is a sense that there is surplus water. But transferring Brahmaputra river when there is flood to the peninsular part of India is a nightmarish proposition. So as I think all of us at this panel have said, it's very important for the Supreme Court to take a review of this and to stress that whereas its intention is to provide India with water security, perhaps the interlinking project, which was perhaps brilliantly conceived 40 years ago, is not the project of tomorrow's India. That there is a lot more that India can do and must do with its water management and not lose time chasing this idea which all of us know will go nowhere.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir, for joining us on this discussion. It's time for us to end the show. You can email your suggestions and comments to law.rstv@gmail.com. You can also watch our shows on the YouTube. We'll be back with a new issue and a new episode. Keep watching Rajya Sabha TV.